Hey everybody! Look at how shiny and bright everything is. What happened to all the blurriness? There's no blurriness no more. It's all bright, colorful, and shiny. Look at it. So yeah, I had to get a new computer. My other one was, as I said in my streaming video, kicking the bucket. So I said, now's the time, if any time's the time. So obviously, better camera, better stuffs, and but now you can just see how unkempt I actually am. So I'm gonna have to use this thing and just start brushing it up a little bit. There. Dexterity is decreased. Charisma increased. Dexterity. It's terrible. Yeah. I don't think I'm making this any better. But anyway, this kind of thing's kind of cool. It's a slicker brush, and it's kind of self-cleaning. So you just like click a button, and it goes, and it goes, and there it goes. So like all the fur like stays out there, and you just wipe it off. Advertising, I don't know. But anyways, new shiny stuff aside. So this week I did want to talk about something a little more personal and a little more, it's kind of bad news, kind of good news, I think. Sort of just life in general. So my claim to fame before making silly YouTube videos and doing all that, talking about politics at some points. I don't know why politics became my thing all of a sudden. It's more of a hobby than anything. But also fandom is also a good hobby of mine. So I decided, to try and make videos and stuff like that, at least once a week, trying to cover, certain topics I wanted to cover on those things. So I have a lot of things to say, even outside the fandom, and I didn't really have a place to really do that. So I decided, well, I'll do it on the YouTubes. I'll kind of do things within the fandom, without the fandom. Because I had a place to write articles inside the fandom, and I have for a while now. For about 6 years, I've been a member of a website called Flayrah, and I've been probably a quote-unquote contributor for about 5 of those years, 5 or 4, I can't remember. And it really was kind of my calling to fame sort of thing, where it wasn't like, oh my god, you're super famous. It's like just as any other person who writes articles for a living, probably some people know you, some people don't. Like everything in life, there's some things people will know, people will know you for certain things and people won't. And outside of that little niche, they might not. So I did write articles. I have written articles for Flayrah, mostly about fandoms and stuff like that, about the fandom, about events in the fandom, about, good events, bad events. I've done some reviews on slow days, particularly video game reviews, which is kind of what inspired me to do the other video that I'm going to be posting this week, which is try out this little streaming thing. I'm using OBS software because my other computer came with sort of a video recording thingy. This one didn't, so it actually did come. Actually, it's a gaming laptop, so it did come with its own. Interestingly enough, it came with its own streaming thing, like its own streaming software where you can stream stuff on your video thing. I tried using it and it kept breaking. Like it literally kept breaking the game. I would close out of the game without closing out the software, and then it would hang up the game, and it's freaking weird. I can't even remember the name of the thing, but it was terrible. So I was like, well, I remember using Open Broadcast at one point, so I tried it again, and it worked fine. Except for that one issue. Oh, God. Why? So here's a pro tip. If you are streaming a video game, do not change your sizes. Do not change the size of your screen while you're streaming, because apparently that's a problem. And the video's like, I can't capture this thing, and now I'm going to move as slowly as the dickens. So obviously, if I ever did a streaming thing like that again, probably wouldn't do that. And if I was going to do streaming of a video game, if I was going to do videos like that, I'm probably going to post them on another channel, because I kind of want to keep the World in Rooview channel sort of vlogish and more informative than anything. But that in the side, I do want to try and focus more on this channel and try and create better videos and more videos. And even though they don't seem there seems to be highs and lowers and stuff like that, but the meta aside, I do want to try and get more furry topics, and the furry topics seem to be more popular even despite anything else. I put a lot of time and research into like political things, but at the end of the day, the fandom stuff is very popular now. So that means I should probably try to cover more topics such as those. That being said, let's talk about Flayrah itself. Flayrah is a news website that was made like basically a furry kind of news website. It was kind of done in the honor of sort of a dig. It wasn't really a dig kind of thing. It was more I can't remember what it was kind of designed off of, but it's more of a user created article, but under sort of a editorial review board. So it's more like, it's sort of like a super blog, I guess you can call it, a quote unquote super blog. It's not quite a news thing where you're not being paid and hired to do it. Anyone from any background could come in, write an article for Flayrah tomorrow. The problem is that it's going to go under editorial review, and they're going to try and make it better, and you're going, like, whether you get on or not is really up to the editorial review board and all that stuff. So whether they see it as relevant or whatnot. They've had stints where they tried to post non-furry things, and that didn't go over well. So I even made an article in response to that saying we need to keep this furry because this is what its thing is. This is what it's for. It's for fandom news. It's for if we are going to do like our reviews of furry things, things of that regard. And it's been that way, and it's been a healthy thing. It's been had its ups and downs. I think it's been on the up and up, and it's been on a consistent up and up. But you hit these lulls, and what ends up happening is it's happened twice already in Flayrah's lifetime, where basically the person who owns the site gets caught up in other things, and basically they're like, well, I can't do it anymore, so I'm going to give up on it or whatnot. That hasn't happened recently, but certain things kind of show me that maybe we're heading into this cycle again, which kind of concerns me. Especially since I do like the conversations that go on there, and I do think that it is a very cornerstone of, furry nonfiction in regards to reviews, in regards to fandom activities and stuff like that. And it's an important resource, and I really hope that it maintains its thing. And it was under threat, like in 2002 and 2009. Like that kind of went through two cycles like that, where the person passed it off to someone else. So the latest stint was basically in 2009. The previous owner was handing it off to Green Reaper because Green Reaper wanted to maintain it. Green Reaper is the what they call it, editor-in-chief, like basically the guy who runs the thing on the main as the head editorial person. What you feel about Green Reaper aside, he tries to maintain things. He maintains WikiFur, and that was kind of his big thing to start with. Then he kind of took over Flayrah. Flayrah was kind of a side thing. It's always kind of been a side thing, I think, for him. WikiFur's kind of been his main draw. But then recently, like about 2 or 3 years ago recently, he acquired Ink Bunny, which is a social furry art site. So in the kin of Fur Affinity and So Furry and Furry Network and the more and more keep coming around. So the problem here is that I think it's at the point where certain individuals get overburdened with they take on this content, they take more and more and more on until they get to the point where they're like, well, I got to sacrifice something. And unfortunately, right now it seems like unfortunately, when he originally took over Ink Bunny, I felt like Flayrah was going to be it, because basically Green Reaper was mostly editing and doing editorial work by himself for the most part. and probably with one other person or so. So basically they got overwhelmed. They couldn't keep up with editing all this stuff, and stories started to pile up and go slow. And that is actually kind of what influenced, one of the things that influenced Packrat to make to take his work and kind of move to his own blog, which is called Dogpatch Press, which some people may have heard of. It's sort of a San Francisco furry sort of stint, news article things, and Fred Patton, who does a lot of reviews, has been with the fandom since the very beginning. I mean, the very beginning. Like, Fred Patton is like, if you could find an Adam in that Eve, like Adam, if you could get Adam's signature from some Adam thing, he might not be Adam himself, but he's pretty close removed to it. Maybe he's like Cain or something like that. I don't know. Or Abel, or one of those was the one that's not murdery. Okay, he's an okay guy. So he's very well respected, and he kind of also does, now he's moved his reviews kind of over more towards Patch's thing because of the whole slowdown thing. And Patch has been keeping up with his own website quite fine, probably because he's focused on it. That's his baby. He doesn't have other babies to worry about. As Green Reaper started to realize, okay, maybe I should, bring someone else into the fold, he brought in somebody, and that somebody was Cross Affliction. Cross Affliction did a lot of content reviews for Flayrah. Like if it was a movie, I think it was mostly movies and film and comic books. But if it was one of those two mediums, Cross probably wrote about it at some point or another. So he did mostly movies and comic books. Fred was the bookish kind. We've gotten a few more bookish kind of reviewers as well. I did video games, and I still kind of do video games from time to time. Might do it more now that I have a machine that could actually play these things. Okay? So I guess look for that. But the thing is, I actually did an article for Flayrah, and this is why I worry that we're kind of moving back in the direction of the people who are running Flayrah getting overwhelmed to the point of slowdown, and that's because it's not like a qualm that's like out of my brain, like, oh my gosh, it's so the Patch, who I mentioned earlier, doesn't really post articles for Flayrah anymore, but he comments there from time to time. He watches it. I mean, he's interested in furry news and stuff like that, so he'll go to Flayrah and look at the things. So, there was an article that was written or something or other, and somehow the topic kind of got off topic, which happens all the time in Flayrah. Heck, that whole bathroom video thing I posted about the gender separation of the bathroom, that actually occurred because of a topic on Flayrah. It was basically, what were the top articles of 2014 or something like that, and all of a sudden the topic somehow got to bathrooms, and it got to, people being uncomfortable in bathrooms around other people who are attracted to the same gender, and that whole idea and thought and process over the past 2 years of crafting kind of led to that video about, the how to make a bathroom that's gender neutral. And that's actually one of my most well-received nonfiction, non-furry topics. It actually has the most retention time, and I would actually say that that's because it is the most crafted thing. It is the most, I had a lot of thought behind it. I had my reasons. I knew why I was against it. I knew why it needed to change, and I knew how to change it because I'd had 2 years to plan it out and think about it, mostly because that spark of debate in Flayrah led to those line of thoughts. So it is I love a community like that can challenge without being overbearing. But unfortunately, at this point in time, at this one incident, I think went too far. And it's unfortunate, and it's a very much tragic thing. Cross Affliction has come out and said that he was a victim of unsavory acts at a furry con. It actually kind of ruined furry cons for him because of the problem that he had, and he's been public about it. So, I will say that I will, and so people know that that's public knowledge, I guess, at this point. No, the details aren't public knowledge. He hasn't said stuff like that, but I believe him in that regard. It can happen. Bad things happen, and that's the important thing and that's why having news things is important, because having propaganda pieces and saying everything's like yay, everything's awesome, everything will always be as great as it is, and nothing can ever go wrong. It's great, but it's kind of hollow at the same time, because there are darker elements to this world, whether they're inside the fandom or outside the fandom, and you need to be aware of those elements. Being aware of how they work so that you can avoid them getting involved in them or getting victimized by them yourself. And unfortunately, sometimes though, even the best prepared person, even the most cautious person can find themselves in the wrong side of those things. Now, the reason I bring that up is because Patch sort of brought it up in the conversation. I can't remember it because the comments have actually been deleted, which, quite frankly, doesn't happen all that quite often in Flayrah. But, Cross had admin powers, and he got really upset about the comments that were made around that particular topic. And he basically went around and he was grudge deleting some things. He went a little too far, but, he then stepped back and said, well, maybe I need a vacation. And so he took a 1 month hiatus, and that 1 month hiatus has kind of trickled on. You can still see his name as a supporting editor, but he has told me he's stepped down basically at this point. So now, because of this, it's been about 2 months-ish since that's happened. Since he's kind of taken a step back. Actually, I think he left in about April or March, so it's been a little bit longer than that. But basically, Cross took a lot of the editoring on himself, and he probably didn't get a lot of good credit for it, as much credit as he should have. And it's hard work. It's a hard thing to do, and people are quick to criticize when things go wrong and slow to praise when things are functioning as they should be. And but it is a lot of effort and a lot of work to keep things the way they should be. Life in general is that way. And I think that the world could do better if we give more praise and more applause to those who do supply the things that make the world function, even if it's just their job, even if it's just something that they do. Whether they be cops or whether they be, less, things. Whether they be a cashier, whether they be, it's hard, it's effort, it's work. People put effort into these things, and they deserve praise more than just getting thrown money at them. They deserve, our fullest regards. And so to Cross, for the work and effort that he did put in in his time during that, I do send my regards and thank you for that. And it's easy to see now, like, how much effort he must have put into it, because I posted, now I think you might have recalled, but I posted a video up here about the furries on YouTube. And I went through a list of, furries, YouTube channels and kind of things I would have recommended. As I was making my own channel, I was like, maybe I should review some of these channels and point out some of the stuff that you might be interested in seeing. And that happened, and I posted an article on Flayrah, basically kind of written out the same way at the same time. If people are keeping track, that's July. That's early July. That's last month. I posted, I wrote the story thing and I put it on there, and I let it sit, and it's been sitting out there for an entire month. Basically sitting there without any regards to getting it done and getting it together. And that is depressing. That is the longest I've ever seen one of my articles sit out there. And I don't know if it's because they don't like it, if it's because they don't know whether or not they should have it in there or not. or the person who's in charge right now of making those articles and editing them is too busy. Which it might be that case. And, he's busy with Ink Bunny. He's busy with WikiFur. Like, there's a lot of stuff that he has on his plate. And once again, he brought on this person to help around, to try and, lighten his workload. But at the end of the day, he couldn't handle the constant, internet being the internet, and eventually it got to him. And quite frankly, what I will use in quotes trigger him is very well, it was basically, Patch was basically, basically he was bluntly being a jerk about the whole incident that, that Cross was very, cross about. And he shouldn't have been, and that topic really should have been off limits for that kind of candor. And it is an unfortunate thing. Now, unfortunately, we have Flayrah had lost a very, keystone individual within that site when Cross left, and that needs to be said that this action has had negative consequences. And if, and I don't think that, it was in Patch's, I don't think it was in Patch's intention to harm Flayrah. I think he enjoys Flayrah very much so, but he may have done so here. And he has his own site to run, he has his own news site to run, but I don't think, and people might go, well, he did it on purpose, so, he could have his own news site, and his news site could be the best news site, and it's like, no. Like, that's Patch, I think, more likes a healthy fandom and wants, more voices in the fandom and, things like that, and not less. Even though he's very passionate about what he believes in and what he stands for and he's very much a prudish kind of person, and he will snide and joke and stick his nose up at anybody he sees as too crude or too prude, too prude, I should say, not too crude, not crude enough, I should say. So, that little personal politic aside in the Flayrah, at this point, I will probably have to heavily consider putting my name in the hat on trying to get on board with being more than just a writer there at this point. I had brought it up with Green Reaper at least once. I may have to do it again, especially if that is the case that my article's been sitting out there for a month because they don't have the staff to do it anymore, and they don't have the people with the time to do it anymore. And though it may take away from my time to do fiction writing, do gaming, do this, this stream or video blog thing, I think if I take at least a few hours of the week to do that instead, I think it's no harm, no foul. And I think that because more people need to contribute to the communities that are important to them, and that's the only way things function, really, at the end of the day. And I think that's an important lesson to take away from all this, is that the community cannot function on one person or one cult of personality, and it takes a team to do it. And even for Affinity, a lot of people say Dragoneer, but he's got a staff of people as tight-knit and as small as it is, and how much larger he'd probably like it. It is still a team, and they still do things as a team. A very isolated and kind of niche and very closed, closing off of the entire populace sort of team people would criticize, but they're still a team, and they still keep For Affinity running, and they don't get praised for that all that often, but it's still up. And probably a lot of people at IMVU are to praise for that too. So, thank you to everyone in the community who contributes to something that is beyond, that they volunteer for, that they get things done and they provide content and stuff like that, because you're the ones that keep things like this going. You're the ones that keep Fandom going. You're the ones that keep things going. So that being said, I guess the long or the short was, Flayrah seems to be floundering a little bit right now, and hopefully we can get over that hump. And if not, then I may have to take the gloves off. Get my hands dirty. Get it all scrungy. Get it in there and get it done. So, but that's all for today. So I've got to make a hotkey for this so that I don't have to lean in and do this. But I'm going to get the hop out of here. And thank you everyone for watching this week. It was a bit ramblier this week because it was more off the cuff. Hopefully I'll have something a little more planned next week. I'll probably might get voting back on, and we'll do it that way. So thank you very much for watching. Bye.